destination is Jumeirah Gulf Estates.
Hello everyone, welcome back, and I am back as well from a trip that wasn't very long but felt very long for many personal reasons, and part of that being with my family as well as being back in Dubai, and that was probably the last time I will be there. And there were a lot of thoughts, as you probably noticed from my very lengthy post, a lot of reflections. But I wanted to make this video because my purpose in going on this trip was initially, first and foremost, to sort of say goodbye to Dubai. As for some background info, I used to live in Abu Dhabi, which I actually did not get to visit on this trip because Abu Dhabi's COVID restrictions are a lot stricter. Coming back to visit Dubai, which is where my dad works, and I have been there at least, this is my third trip there, I think. It really made me it made me realize just how different Dubai is from Abu Dhabi, but also how unique it is as a city, and really the effect that it has on me mentally, emotionally, even spiritually, and even physically, as it is a literal desert with very little oasis. And some of the oasis that you can find is all pretty much manufactured, which makes sense because in a desert you don't find a lot of natural bodies of water or greens, and in human civilization we want that. We want at least the feeling of nature, even in a place where we can't find it very easily. And so coming back to Dubai, I had a lot of thoughts, and I wanted to sum them up not only talking about Dubai itself, which I definitely will, specifically as a city that I think is built for tourists. And now I just want to say there are plenty of videos out there already talking about what the internet loves to call the dark side of Dubai, and that would include the environmental damage of man-made islands and waters, the socioeconomic hierarchy that's very visible, as well as the terrible conditions faced by laborers. But I wanted to bring this from more of a tourist perspective, as many of you watching this will probably be more likely to be visitors or guests to Dubai, and I have included some links to show you the realities of Dubai, many of which I didn't get to capture simply by being in these more tourist areas. Even the place where my dad lives is kind of right in the middle of downtown Dubai. It's the hub. That would be where all the foreigners and the expats and tourists come, not the truly local sides, some of which I have visited. I did check out a suburb with a lot of beautiful, more colorful architecture, which I really enjoyed. But I think the importance of this video is to think of what we can do and how we can use our perspective to be mindful travelers without falling into the trap of the woke tourist, as I will call it. And this is a bit of where personal experience comes in. As someone who lived in the UAE, I always believed that I had a special kind of perspective whenever I went back to visit. But the more I came back to Dubai, especially, not Abu Dhabi per se, the more I started to feel like a tourist, and the more weight I felt of the privileges I had as a tourist, as someone who is able to be shielded from the scorching sun, to be in cars and air conditioning, to not have to suffer the heat by working in these conditions, to afford these ridiculously expensive restaurants and cafes. And so I think this will be important for not just anyone who visits Dubai, but anyone who considers traveling in the future. Now I'll start with a little analogy. I always call Dubai my lotus flower island, or more accurately, the lotus eater island. In Greek mythology, Odysseus travels to the island of the lotus eaters, who are a group of people who eat the leaves of lotus flowers. By eating these, it's almost like a narcotic. They enter this state of tranquility and peace and leisure, and it makes anyone who comes to the island and drink it want to stay on the island forever. Now there are many different kinds of legends and stories that are very similar to this. And then there's a good old Percy Jackson adaptation, which turned the island into a casino. And I know the reputation of Percy Jackson movies, but that was actually a pretty accurate depiction of the Lotus Eater Island. And the similar feeling comes when you're in Dubai, in that I feel as if I'm, first of all, walking through Vegas, only even more gold, and this sort of surreal feeling, even more kind of modern, futuristic, because everything is so new, it's gleaming. And you really do feel like you're walking in this nature-free, man-made city. Not that any city is not man-made. There are literally like streets of gold and buildings of gold, glitter and lights, huge fountain shows. Tell me that does not sound like Vegas. In a way, this feeling is enhanced in Dubai because of the way that the city is structured, and in that it is so new and it is so specifically designed to attract tourists. I mean, that's what it wants to do. So if you get to the city and feel like, oh, everything around here is sort of manufactured, it's like meant to draw me in, to sell me things, and to make me feel like I'm having this exotic desert experience with all this wealth and glamour around me, you're not wrong. That is kind of the intention behind Dubai. And on the surface, besides all the oil and other kind of businesses that are going on, tourism is really what sells the city. But why, you may ask, would a city like Dubai need to rely on tourism when it has such great wealth? The fact that Dubai's economy depends on oil is actually old news. Oil only contributes to 1% of Dubai's economy today. The reason for this is that Abu Dhabi, the emirate next to Dubai, actually generates much more natural oil. And in order to compete with Abu Dhabi's economy, Dubai has turned to two major focuses: trade and tourism. Before the 1960s, Dubai's economy was actually better known for its pearl diving. With its limited oil supply, it began to pour out its money from the oil into infrastructures for tourism in order to grow. It also made itself immensely popular with foreign businesses by creating tax-free zones. In a way, the city is creating these demands for all the construction, for all the service industries, but also it's really a way that the city sustains itself, because besides oil, the city really is a land of desert. In 2002, Dubai has a population of nearly 3 million people. 85% are made up of expats. Now, the majority demographic amongst these expats are Asians. I'm including South Asians. Actually, they're mostly South Asians. Many of the migrant workers that you see or don't see, especially the ones working in the construction and service industries, will be from India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, and the Philippines. The rest are kind of a big pot of mush. The rest are kind of all mixed up, with a lot of business people coming from Europe or America, Canada, different parts of Asia, but basically some form of Asian and Caucasian, and occasionally African will be the majority demographic there. Now, it was interesting to learn that 75% of the population is actually male, which makes sense because many of the industries that draw in these workers are heavily male dominated. But there are also many women working in specific service industries like cleaning and hotel work, and many also working as domestic workers in private homes. All my friends growing up in Abu Dhabi had maids. I was the only one who didn't because my dad was stubborn and he thought that we could do things by ourselves, which we kind of did. I think actually the only families I knew in Dubai or Abu Dhabi without a maid was Korean. We have a bit of a stubbornness to do things on our own, and also we're a bit stingy. Coming back to Dubai always gave me this sense of being in a land where everything about myself that I know, that I'm sure of, my faith, my beliefs, it all just kind of melts away. I feel like I've taken this lotus flower leaf potion and I'm in this world where I'm treated like a royalty. I am called Miss or Ma'am if people think I'm old. No one's ever called me ma'am. There's a great sense of entitlement that keeps building up. And this is partly due to the people I'm surrounded by, my family, who have absorbed this kind of attitude and this very nonchalance about the lifestyle of Dubai, where we kind of expect things to be done for you and for service to be very quick, very polite. And because of all the things that I mentioned, I always get the sense that I'm not supposed to be here permanently. It doesn't feel like a place that I should be long term. And a lot of it is because of the mindset that sort of comes on when I'm in this city. It was really difficult being there. But I don't want this video to be something that vilifies Dubai. I don't want this to discourage anyone from going and seeing it for themselves. I do think there are a lot of beauties, a lot of architectural beauty, and there are really two main purposes for people visiting Dubai. It's either business or pleasure, which is probably the same for any other case. But I think the pleasure aspect really is strong just because there isn't a whole lot of historical knowledge to be gained. Even the museums and the sort of old architecture that you can visit, a lot of it has been modified and reconstructed to be more friendly to tourists rather than preserved in its natural state. And a lot of it is sort of surrounded by the city. And I think this is where I can find actually some commonalities with Korea, where you can see these very old traditional buildings kind of right in the middle of the city. It's kind of the same thing in Dubai. It is such a diverse city, but at the same time, there are really specific categories of people. There are tourists, there are people living there on business, and their families, or there are the workers. But even creating these tiers or categories in my mindset felt to me as if I was distinguishing myself. I was putting these people in all these categories. And so being more aware and being more of a woke tourist, as I'll call it, didn't make me feel a whole lot better, and actually didn't contribute to anything because I was unable to escape the lotus flower trap. Eventually I just had to get on a plane and leave. But I don't want it to be that every time I go to a city like Dubai, or every time I go traveling, to see so deeply behind all of these facades that I don't even allow myself or others to enjoy the experience and to be there. And now this is where I'll say that experience really is based on your perspective. And so of course, me sitting under the shade, me sitting with sunglasses at a pool or at a restaurant balcony will be a very different experience from the waiters who are walking in and out of the sun, no sunglasses, no shade. And trust me, being a tourist there, you will sweat. Like, if you go anywhere between now and October, you are guaranteed to sweat. And I don't suggest you go to Dubai anytime in the summer. Actually, the only times I recommend that you do go to Dubai if you want to see anything outdoors or during the day is between December and March, early March preferably. This wasn't meant to be like a tourist tip video, but that just kind of happened. But also I feel like being aware of the situations around me, being aware of the fact that not everyone living here, especially those living here and not being guests, have the same privileges that I do. It honestly made being there kind of miserable, and I think every time I go back, there is a greater sense of disillusionment. I guess the opposite of the lotus flower analogy would be Plato's cave allegory, where like the people in the cave who were enlightened by the fact that the objects they were seeing were actually just shadows, I now being aware and awakened, I guess, to this knowledge about the place I lived, I feel this greater sense to both leave and to inform others. But this time around, I really wondered to myself, is that sense of disillusionment, is that also in itself putting myself on a pedestal and putting myself above other tourists, other travelers or visitors, or even people going there for work? And I definitely know that I can judge people without thinking, just judge people around me, people at hotels or restaurants who are kind of having a nice time, who are just there to enjoy themselves. Really thinking about perspective and realizing that pitying people is just as condescending as pure arrogance. Me being rude to the service people, I think, is equivalent to feeling like, oh, I know they're struggling. I know that they are in such a less fortunate or privileged position than me. Whatever it might be. That's the kind of mindset that's very tempting to have, but it's one that I was really trying to fight. I don't really know what a solution is, because once that thought is sort of planted in your mind, once you know everything that's going on, once you're aware, and this is why maybe some philosophers say that ignorance is bliss, but I do think that it's possible to be aware and to act upon that knowledge with wisdom and respect. Overall, I think it comes down to humanizing and bringing back human dignity for not just the workers, but for the people that we are judging on the outside. The people that I am judging on the outside. The people who are in their nice clothes, fancy designer things and wearing sunglasses. I don't know why the sunglass thing bothers me so much. I don't know why I feel so like condescending and so like a celebrity when I'm wearing sunglasses, when I know it's literally just to protect my eyes. But you know, there's some people who can't even... Anyways, no, I'm not gonna go there. So even with those people that I judge, those business people, those people who I know are there on wealth, Dubai is not the only place with a socioeconomic hierarchy. It's just more clearly visible because of the specific demographic, the specific ethnic demographic that makes up majority of these workers. It's easier to separate them in my mind as the other, and also to separate, I didn't want to say it, but I'll just say it, the white European Western visitors and then whoever, you know, is dressed nicely. It's easier to categorize them also as villains or as, I don't know, people who should, or people who are not aware. And I don't know what's going on in their head. I don't know if all those people around me that I see, and there are thousands of people just on the streets, sometimes it really is turmoil in my own head. But I know that it's not a bad thing to know, and I can't possibly be the only one who knows, because to assume that would also be very presumptuous. And even as I have these preconceived notions and judgments, I still don't know much about them. Hello everyone. I don't usually cut in like this, as you know, but I was editing this and I read this article on the Expo 2020, which was a huge event at Dubai that's was happening until March, which I attended. And this article said that there was just horrific abuse of rights of the laborers who, you know, were working pretty much in the sun, which can get up to like 40 degrees in the summer, 40, 50 degrees, and workers who were either not being paid properly or not being paid on time, or whose passports had been taken away, who had been held bondage by debts, workers who weren't getting paid overtime, and discrimination and racism suffered by specific demographics. And you know, I really wanted this to be like a clean ending. I wanted to give you guys a nice, good video, but it's like I didn't think I could do that. I didn't think I could put like a neat bow around this and not mention what is actually going on in Dubai. And the reason I didn't make this video about that is because I didn't want that to be the purpose. The purpose for this video was for me to be reflecting and my personal thoughts and experience of being there again, and also having lived there, and yeah, like everything that I already said in the video. But it's like I also didn't feel right. Like it didn't feel right for me to not say the truth as well. And I really did debate a lot while I was editing this video. What should I include? What should I cut out? What's already been said enough? And I know that all these things have been said enough, but I think it's just another wake-up call to see that it was happening, not just only right now, but right in front of me. And I knew that it was happening in front of me. I knew that I can see. I walk around, I see people on the streets, and it's like I really wanted this conversation in this video to focus more on, you know, there are other people living in Dubai as well. There are other people who choose to visit, and I think there were so many self-judgments in my heart. I didn't want to, I was wallowing so much in that I sort of wanted to lift myself and everyone else up as well. And I wanted to say that, you know, it's not wrong to be there. But I think that the more I thought about it and the more I experienced it, in a way, I think that it might not be wrong, but it's also not really helping the problem either. But at the same time, it's like, you know, if you have family there, if that's where you grew up, if that's your life, then what do you do? And I think that's really what I wanted to say. I think I didn't want to shift the blame, which wouldn't really solve the problem. But at the same time, I do really think that there's just a lot of horrible things going on under the UAE government, and I also didn't want this to be any kind of attack on the people of the country, on the Emirati people, because again, like, the individuals don't represent the government. They don't represent these certain ideals or values, but and I think there's enough criticism out there. I think it's easy to attack and criticize, but it's harder to see from the perspectives of those that you hate, or those who are doing terrible things, because it's like you feel like, why should you see from their perspective? But in this video, I really wanted to open that hard conversation and say that, like, what I said about humanizing and dehumanizing, it still stands. They are humans as well, and there is some, even if it's not rational, even if it is senseless or driven by, I don't know, truly deep-seated racism or hatred, or anything like that, they are still people and humans made in the image of God, and I wanted a chance for that as well. But in the end, I can only speak for myself, and I think that maybe I was trying to do too much or too little with this video, and it always feels like I'm not doing enough. At the same time, it feels like I'm overstepping. Like, it seems like there's nothing. I think there's just so many warped ideas and views of right and wrong and good and evil that it's like it feels like nothing I do can be good, which I know is not true. And I think that right now I just need to stand firm in in my identity, in my faith, and just know that and just be guided by God, and just be guided in prayer and just wisdom that I can't make for myself. It doesn't come from me. But sorry, that was really long of a speech. I'm gonna cut it short now, but I hope you all have a good night. And this is probably the biggest twist ending that you were ever expecting or not expecting, because it's twist ending. I'm really tired. I'm gonna go now. Okay. Bye.